Hello, this is Jordan Kromf, and I'm here to talk to you today about how to utilize the weekly business briefing to absolutely explode your business. First of all, why to utilize the weekly business briefing? Well, there are three main reasons. The first one being that it is the way to go ahead and resell yourself on the dream. Now, why would you want to resell yourself? Now, I thought that was weird when I first heard that. I'm already excited about LegalShield. I already know everything I need to know about it. Why do I need to constantly get resold on it? Well, I'll tell you what. Just like any major institutions, they all have weekly gatherings, so they keep everyone on the same page. And the weekly business briefing will definitely make sure that it keeps that fire. You know, there's a saying, if you had a good week, then the business briefing needs you. But if you had a rough week, then you need the business briefing. So that's the first reason. Now, the second reason that you want to utilize the weekly business briefing is for duplication. Again, duplication. See, when you show up consistently to a weekly business briefing, and by the way, they can take place anywhere from a Monday to a Friday. Usually it's at 7 p.m. and they take place all across the country. So you definitely want to find out which business briefing in your area is the best one for you to plug into. And you definitely want to be consistent at showing up at that event, because what will happen is what I was talking about, the duplication factor. You see, if you consistently show up at a briefing, eventually you'll have maybe one person who will eventually show up with you, then two, then three. Let me ask you a question. Would you like to have hundreds, maybe thousands of people all across the country, a part of your organization, who are showing up at a business briefing? Absolutely. See, that's the magic about this business. It's about building a team. You get to live the dream, right? So it all starts with what you're willing to do, the price you're willing to pay. I mean, think about it. People have bowling night, they have family night. It doesn't make sense to have one night that's your financial independence night. So it starts with you, and you have to have that long-term vision. It's not just about you. It starts with you. Eventually it'll grow to people that are going to join you, and you're going to have a lot of people show up with you. Now, the third reason for the weekly business briefing is actually to bring out guests. Again, to bring out guests to the briefing. Now, it's funny because a lot of times people think that's the number one reason for the business briefing. So it's purposely number three because, yes, you absolutely want to bring guests out to the briefing, but not to forget reason number one and number two. See, number three reason is what's actually going to build your business. It's game time. It's showtime. I mean, it's a presentation. And another thing about the weekly business briefing is it's the best presentation you get to utilize all week long. So it only makes sense that you want to get your prospects out there, your friends, family, whoever it is, that you want to bless them with the opportunity to see this information. And so when you bring out guests, again, that's another factor in duplication. Because if you're one of those individuals in LegalShield who is known for always having guests that come out to the briefing, that's going to be kind of your reputation with your team as well. Your team will do what you do. So those are the three reasons to utilize the business briefing. Now I'm going to talk really briefly about what to do before, during, and after the weekly business briefing. So let's talk about before. Before the briefing, you want to arrive at 7 o'clock. Now the presentation starts at 7:30, but the briefing starts at 7. Why is that? Well, at 7 o'clock, that is your opportunity to basically help your guest feel comfortable. So you bring your guests, and I'm going to give you a scenario. So you show up, and what you want to do is definitely get your guests signed in. Now, you want to make sure that you sign in as an associate, and then you sign in your guest as a guest. And another thing, you don't want to introduce your guest as your guest. You want to say, hey, this is my friend, or this is John, or Jill, whatever their name is. Don't say, hey, this is my guest, because they're going to feel a little like, oh, I'm a guest. What does that even mean, right? So, but you do want to introduce them to maybe it's someone in your support team, or people that you know from the briefing, because you're consistently showing up, right? So you're starting to get to know the people there, kind of like the show Cheers. You want to go where everybody knows your name, right? So so that's basically what's going to happen eventually when you're consistent. And, you know, if you don't know a lot of people at the briefing, that's fine. You'll very quickly identify who's in charge. And that's the executive directors, the ring earners, maybe it's the marketplace leaders, the directors, whatnot. And you want to introduce. You don't want to introduce them to too many people, but maybe to one or two or three people before the presentation starts, because what you're going to do is when you introduce them, you're going to say, hey, Mr. Such and Such, this is my friend Jill. Jill, this is Mr. Such and Such. So notice you spoke to your to the leader in the marketplace by their last name, and your prospect, even if it's a doctor or a lawyer, you always introduce them by their first name because it builds respect. Now, why do you do that? Because the expert the market leader that you're introducing them to knows two things that they're going to do. First of all, they're going to welcome them to the event and maybe ask them a couple questions that, like, hey, where are you from? Build some rapport to help them feel comfortable. And second of all, they're going to edify you. They're going to speak highly of you so that your prospect knows that they're in good hands. Because if they hear from one or two people that they're here with the right person, they're going to already feel more inclined to understand that this is a good opportunity and they're in good hands as well. There's a saying that people decide whether or not they're going to join LegalShield before the presentation even starts, and it has a lot to do with that. There is one thing you want to do, however, before you introduce your guest to the market leader, and that is say a couple things about that leader, not in the presence of the leader. I'm going to say that again. So let's say I have Jill here, she's my guest, and I'm going to say, hey Jill, you see that guy over there? That's Mr. Such and Such, and oh my God, and his background is blah, 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 and now with our company, he's doing some phenomenal things. I don't even know if I can, but maybe I can grab a brief moment of his time just so he can welcome you here. You definitely got to meet him. And so you build some respect and show them that you respect them, and then in turn your prospect will respect the leader as well. So that's very important. What you do before the briefing, you definitely want to grab them a cup of water. If you've ever been to a party and people, if they don't have a cup, something that they're drinking, they maybe feel a little out of place, right? You give them a cup, oh cool, I feel comfortable now. So that's definitely something that you want to do. Make sure you have water. Maybe not a full cup, because if they drink the whole water, they're going to have to go to the restroom in the middle. You don't want them to do that. But, I would say mostly fill up the cup. You don't want to give them an empty cup. That's weird too. So what you want to do is make sure that you get the best seat that you can, as close to the front as you can. Usually the front row is reserved for executive directors or above. So as close as you can to the second row, third row. Most of the money is made in the front. I'll tell you what, the dynamic of the room, it's a much better presentation in the front of the room than it is in the back of the room. Try it out. You'll see. So now what do you do during the presentation? Now you want to make sure that your guest, you already told them to dress sharp, right? You already told them to bring a notepad and pen. If you didn't do that, you definitely need to do that way before the briefing starts, when you invite them in the first place to the briefing. So they have a notepad and pen. If they forgot to bring one, make sure you have an extra pen and paper so you can give them so they take notes. Because here's what's going to happen. During the presentation, you're sitting there and you're taking notes. They're looking at you and seeing how you're acting during the presentation. Now, if you don't have a guest, you still want to do that. You want to play team. See, if you didn't do the work that was necessary to go out there and get a guest that week to the briefing, but the other associate in the room did, and they brought out this super sharp guest with them, and you're there kind of with your arms crossed, not paying attention, what you're doing is you're actually ruining it for the other associates. So we definitely got to play team here, and make sure that when you're taking notes that you're also participating. Whenever the speaker in the room asks a question, you raise your hand if it's a question that applies to you. Now, you don't want to over-participate. Like, for example, who here has ever gotten a speeding ticket? Oh, me, yeah. No, that's weird, okay? You want to be normal, yeah, I got a speeding ticket, yeah. So just be normal, participate. And I do want to touch on this really quickly. Even if you don't have a guest, it is important that you dress sharp, because, again, that other associate who worked all week to get maybe their lawyer to show up, or their doctor, or their CPA finally came to a briefing, and they're of course professionals, and you're there dressed with jeans and a t-shirt. That CPA is going to look and say, oh, what kind of company is this? This is not professional. It's not for me. So again, important that we play team. So that's what you do during the presentation. You take notes, you participate. Now usually, this is the last section here, is what you do after the briefing. Usually the expert, the one presenting in front of the room, will close out the presentation for you in some way, shape, or form. And what you want to do after the presentation is done. Now, a lot of times people mess this up, and it's so easy, it's so simple. I don't know why we do. I know I was victim to it when I was new, because I was nervous. I was kind of a quiet, shy guy. I didn't really, was never in a position where, I talked to people, So for me, I didn't really know what to do after. So I'm really excited that you get to see this portion, because this will save you a lot of time and energy and money. So after the presentation is done, understand this. They just saw a presentation about the best company on earth, right? Right. So if you assume anything but the fact that they're probably ready to get started, then that energy of insecurity about this company will transfer into them, and they're going to start thinking, wait, you know what, maybe I do need more information. Maybe I do need to do my research. Okay, when in fact, they just saw all the facts on stage. They don't need any more information. If they do, then that's fine. They can go ahead and research it. But you don't want it to be because of what you do after the presentation is done. So I'm going to show you what to do. I'll show you also what not to do. When it's done, you don't want to say, so this is what you don't want to do. Hey, what did you think? And start asking them questions and interview them. I see people do that. I did that. It's terrible because, you're instilling fear in them like, oh, something's weird here. No, nothing's, they saw everything. Why would they need to feel uncomfortable? So this is what is amazing. So the presentation is done. Here's what you do want to do. You turn to your prospect or your guest or your friend and you say, awesome stuff, huh? And you nod and bob. Notice I'm going like this. And if they say yes, which they will, you need to have the applications ready, by the way. You pull out the application, whether membership or associate, doesn't matter what you want to start with, and have it handy. You don't want to start fumbling for it, by the way. So you pull it out and you put it on their notepad and you say, great, here, put today's date right here. That's it. And you see, it's a very non-confrontational thing because if they need more information, they'll say, oh, blah, 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 I need more information. But chances are they are ready to get started. So what you're doing, in essence, is you're not getting in the way of them wanting to sign up. And I see so many people doing that. Once I started doing what I just taught you, my income went through the roof. People started signing up, and it was like magic. So you definitely want to do that. Now, if you do have the prospect who isn't ready to get started yet, or they have questions, and you're new, if you have other people in the room that are part of your support team, like your leaders or whatnot, you want to go ahead and say, hey, that's a great question. Let me introduce you. Remember that gentleman I introduced you to before? We're actually a part of his team. He's a great leader. We're going to go ahead and he'll be able to answer our questions, and you circle up with your experts. Okay, now, if you're in a long-distance marketplace, I've been through that when I was newer. I didn't have anyone, to really support in the local event. So what I did, if they had questions, and I was kind of not a people person, definitely. I was like, I don't know. Here's what you do want to do. You say, hey, that's a great question, and you stand up with your guest and you take them to the speaker. Now, your speaker that did the presentation knows that that is code for, hey, my guest has a question. Can you help me help them get started? Okay, so that's what you do after the presentation is done. And so what you also want to do is once they sign up, make sure you give them this audio CD. It's called Building Your Network Marketing Business by Jim Rohn. And you want to inoculate them. Hopefully you'll have a chance to do a little bit of a game plan for them before they leave. Inoculation means make sure that they know not to go out there and talk to everyone. I always share the story that when I got started, I tried to explain it to some of my friends. I did it the wrong way, and it cost me. They thought I was involved in something completely different than I was involved in. And so I wish I didn't do that. And so if you have time to do a game plan with them, great. Another thing that's great is the after event at the weekly presentation afterwards, the event after the event, where they actually get to break bread with some of the leaders that they got to meet. And they get to see, oh, these are real people. These are genuine people, and they're a lot of fun as well. So you want to find out if your marketplace has an after event. So I'm very excited for you to be able to use the business briefing. I know it's one of my favorite tools. Again, it's one of the best presentations out there. So with that, take care and take charge.